May the wisdom of Sophia be with me. And this is when I say, please be seated. I am a woman and a daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother, a grandmother, friend, maker of glass investments, a woman of faith, a lover of creation, and a nurse. So much of who I am and everything I do is interconnected. I began my nursing career at the tender age of 8. My father had been fishing and came home with a snapping turtle. He took it to his good friend Jim, who owned the local restaurant in our small town. That evening, we all went into Jim's to enjoy the turtle soup. When we arrived, he invited my dad back into the kitchen with him, and I tagged along. Once behind the closed door, he unwrapped his hand to show Dad a very nasty injury sustained while preparing the soup. Every penny he had was invested in the hotel, and he didn't have the money to go to the doctor, so asked Dad to fix him up. Dad mustered his best wilderness skills and bandaged up while I watched with great interest. When Dad was finished, Jim turned to me and asked if I would come change the dressing and check on the healing. Thus began my walk into town after school every day to clean the wound and replace the homemade butterfly closures as needed. For this, I was paid in olives. In the 1960s, a woman's choice on education generally meant, do you want to be a nurse or do you want to be a teacher? But after an experience as an exchange student, I started my college career with a double major in German and international relations. I was going to join the Foreign Service. That lasted until the end of my freshman year when I came home for the summer to all jobs being filled. My mother, however, was a nurse at the local rehab facility and got me a job as an aide. On my very first day, I was assigned Mrs. G. She was a beautiful woman of color from the islands who was dying of cancer. When I returned from lunch, she was dead. The staff had left her for me to care for as they were quite afraid of her, believing she practiced the art of voodoo. I had never seen a dead body. I had no idea what to expect or what to do, but with a brief tutorial from the nurse, through the door I went and prepared her body for her final journey as best I could. That experience was a life changer, and rather than making me run the other way, I jumped in with both feet, learning as much as I could from the staff and the patients. While I briefly toyed with trying to become a doctor despite the era, I found I really wanted the hands-on care that nursing provided. When I went back to campus that fall, I changed my major and never looked back. I have been blessed with a fascinating and diverse career, from a neurosurgical unit to one of the very first gender reassignment units in the US, to my work in public health, focusing on communicable and infectious diseases of all things. But my work on a pediatric unit is where I will take you now. It was the mid-70s and I had a 2-year-old, our son Scott, at home. He's here with us today, as are some of my other sons. It was there I resuscitated my first child. I can still feel his tiny rib cage pulsing beneath my fingers as I work to save his life. I see him and feel him to this day, now almost my son's age with children of his own. It was there that I was one of many who cared for children stricken with Haemophilus influenza meningitis in the midst of a regional outbreak, 1 year before the first HIV vaccine was available. Meningitis is an awful foe leading to severe complications, including amputations. There were far too many times I would have prepared their fragile bodies to go to the OR for what was hoped to be a life-saving amputation, all the while knowing another limb might be lost and another, all with no guarantee of life on the other side. It was numbing. No sooner than the children would leave for the OR than I would hold the terrified parents. I vowed then that if I ever lost the ability to cry with my patients, I would leave nursing. At the end of my shift, I would come home and take off my clothes in the foyer before taking a long hot shower and finally going in to check on my own little boy. There were so many times during those days and weeks that I would spend the night at his bedside, my hand on his chest, feeling him breathe and his heartbeat, and assessing his temperature, all the while praying I would not bring the horrible disease home to him. I'm haunted by this experience, and I think about all those working in the hospitals today, feeling the same things I felt, knowing their hands and hearts ache, knowing they are so fatigued and yet so driven to do all they can to make a difference, one life at a time. When I went on to teach clinical nursing at the local college, the staff on the unit loved seeing me, because in choosing patients for my students, I tried to find those closest to death. My own first experience of dealing with it alone at 18 made me determined to be present with my students, so they would have someone with them before, during, and after to help them process the experience. I find myself wondering now who it is that is helping the staff process the enormity of the deaths and the hows of the deaths they are now present for. Helping someone die alone with only masked strangers around them is overwhelming to imagine. I read of nurses stopping to hold hands and stroke foreheads as their patients die, and I ache for all of them. You see, nurses speak of people with stories of love and heartache, hope and disappointment, people who now lie silent and still among the controlled chaos of the ICU, people with families who cannot be with them. And so it is nurses are the ones who set up FaceTime and bring in pictures and tape their own pictures on their protective gear so their patients can know a real person is within and cares about them. I look at my own hands as I see and feel all the lives I have touched through the years and wonder, what can I do? I have now made several hundred masks and given them to all sorts on the front lines, from pharmacists to veterinarians, postal workers, those working in grocery stores, infusion center patients, family and friends. As a maker of vestments, I was asked by a deacon if I had ever made a suicide prevention stole. The answer was no, but I was driven to create this one as a reminder, you are not alone. It is what we all need to know right now. It is what we all need to feel right now. And it's what we all have to be certain everyone knows right now. Call, write, reach out, FaceTime, reconnect, help, love, and care with your heart and with your hands. Amen.